Thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's time for my teacher's certification.
I will share that information this evening, and Mr. Giles will click for me. This evening, we'd like to present two resolutions regarding our intent to pursue interim certification authority under the Alabama Accountability Act. Now, you're probably wondering what's our current situation and why we're pursuing this waiver. Huntsville City Schools has an ongoing need, as you know, to hire teachers throughout the year. However, under Alabama certification, we can currently hire teachers that have been certified effective July 1st of each year. Again, I stress that effective date of certification is currently July 1st. Teachers who graduate in December are not eligible to gain certification until the following school year, and that definitely places some hardships because we do find qualified applicants who have oftentimes actually did student teaching in our schools. Statewide alternative certificates issued once a year with a deadline of October 1st. Now, these alternative certificates do become retroactive to July 1st. Teachers are not, however, highly qualified until they actually receive that certificate. So they're working without highly qualified status if they're asked to be in our schools. The Alabama Prospective Teacher Testing Program is only offered in state, and it's on 5 different dates. It's only offered once during the summer, which creates another challenge as well. This current approach definitely makes it difficult for us to recruit teachers from out of state, especially in the prime spring and summer hiring season. Other results of certificates only being offered once a year: when we have teachers from out of state who graduate after October, we can't get them into HQ positions. Under the provision of the No Child Left Behind Act, this situation, again, is particularly problematic with regard to staffing vacancies in Title I schools, where we know teachers must be highly qualified to qualify under No Child Left Behind. So we are proposing a resolution that would allow us to request a waiver under the Alabama Accountability Act to allow Huntsville City Schools to actually award interim certificate prior to the issuance of the professional educator certificate. Now, we're not just looking to put individuals into classrooms that are not qualified, because these individuals will have met all of the Alabama certification requirements, and we'll put in a number of procedures to ensure that this happens. Additionally, Huntsville City Schools will request authority to grant interim certificate reciprocity to teachers who are certified in other states, provided that Alabama offers comparable certification. Once again, we'll ensure that these individuals are certifiable. Teachers will be required to obtain their Alabama certification within the next complete certification cycle. So if granted this opportunity, they would be expected to get this certification, and they will be deemed highly qualified, which is very important to us as well. What impacts would this provide for us? Basically, it would be a very positive step in the right direction for our system, because new teachers and teachers who are new to Alabama will be able to obtain this certification in a timely manner throughout the school year versus the one time a year. We will be able to certainly recruit from a wider talent pool throughout the school year, allowing us to always select the highest qualified teachers. Students will always have access to highly qualified teachers rather than long-term substitutes, as we all recognize the impact of having long-term subs in our classrooms, and we certainly appreciate our subs, but if we can get a qualified teacher, we recognize the benefits of doing so as soon as possible. And parents will know and recognize that their students are being taught by highly qualified teachers. Additional impacts: it allows us to provide immediate employment for teachers who may be awaiting the issuance of their certificate only. So sometimes we have people kind of in a holding place while they're waiting for that certificate to be approved, even though all of the qualifications have been met. It'll ensure, once again, that NCLB qualifications have been met. It'll definitely minimize disruption to classrooms when we have teachers resign in the middle of the year. to allow us to put a qualified teacher into classrooms. It will ensure that our students are always provided with the highest quality learning environments and that we have qualified teachers. It's beneficial when Huntsville City Schools seeks to fill those hard-to-staff positions because it allows us to get out in front of the talent and really be able to bring the highest qualified teachers into our classrooms. So regarding the teacher certification, I'd like to present a resolution to the board, and we are hopeful that you will sign this resolution this evening. Are we ready for the resolution?
Yeah.
You want to jump in first or ask
Well,
questions?
do you have the recommendation?
Yes, I do have it.
We'll do it Wednesday.
We'll do it, that's fine. Okay, well, I have another slide because there's also another request for waiver to allow alternate hiring requirements for administrators. There are also times when we'd like to have alternate hiring requirements for our administrators. Currently, highly effective leaders from outside of Alabama cannot be hired into an administrative position unless they have at least 3 years of full-time administrative experience or have already attained advanced degree in education, and I should stress from Alabama College or University. And we've had quite a few situations where administrators fall into this category. Huntsville City Schools is providing a resolution and would like a waiver that would begin to allow us to employ highly effective leaders from outside of Alabama. Now, these individuals will still have to have attained at least a master's degree in educational leadership, educational administration, or educational supervision from an institution of higher learning in another state. They will also have to have a proven record of administrative leadership, but it will not require an advanced degree in education from an Alabama college or university. This would certainly, again, have a great impact on Huntsville City Schools because it will really broaden our pool of talent from which we can draw from as school leaders. It will also allow us to acknowledge proven leadership backgrounds of those who may not have yet completed 3 years in an administrative position. Once again, this is not minimizing the qualifications, it's just allowing us to really pull from a larger pool of applicants from outside of Alabama.
And why is this necessary?
This is necessary because leadership's always in short supply, and the idea that only an Alabama university can teach what is needed to be taught to be an educational leader is absurd. We have a principal serving in one of our middle schools right now who went to the premier leadership institution in the world, West Point, and has to go off and get a degree in leadership from a school in Alabama where his professor comes from Mississippi to teach it. And he's got his master's degree in leadership from Mississippi, but it wasn't any good because it wasn't from Alabama. So it's a strange situation. So that's a problem. So that individual's wasting time and money, repeating a degree he already has. We have at least 2 other assistant principals we're looking at bringing in with a new principal, one of which already has a PhD. And that individual would have to go back and get a master's degree in an Alabama school under current rules. So just about no part of this makes sense unless we're in the business of supporting only Alabama colleges.
Board members.
One question. Where it says institution of higher learning in another state, would that not be best served to say in another state that is accredited?
Absolutely.
Make sure it's accredited college or university that they obtain that from,
We can have that.
not
It
a
should be
mail
accredited.
order type of situation.
Sure.
We'll add that.
Could you review real quickly the process for getting a waiver under the Accountability Act? I know the Accountability Act has
So,
picked up a
first
lot
we-
on tax credits, but
We
we've got
send a note
flexibility.
to Dr. Bice. Then we have a public hearing. Then the board votes. Then that goes to Dr. Bice, and Dr. Bice reviews it. And then Dr. Bice can forward it on to the department, to the state school board, and then they can approve it. All that's supposed to happen at the state level within 60 days.
And my thought here is if the state board approves it, they should then look at the processes because this is impacting other school systems as well. So hopefully this will open the door for improved processes throughout the state.
Right.
What happens, that first one that you were going through, Dr. Cooper, what happens if the teacher does not get the schooling that's required or whatever it was?
Then they would no longer
Wouldn't
be
be
renewed by
eligible.
us.
So they're,
Yes, yes.
And this is, very similar things are done elsewhere in the world. Since this is kind of an army town, a lot of folks will realize that when you sign on with SAIC or with the military and you get in your position, they do you fill out the necessary paperwork. They run a cursory records check and issue an interim secret or top secret clearance while they complete the investigation. So the work can get done. So this is much in the same vein. We will do the check of the paperwork. Do you have the right degrees? We'll do the background checks, all that. But if you're not in the test window to take the APPT, the Alabama Prospective Teachers Test, we don't need to wait for that. Because having taken it, I can assure you, there's not a lot of value added. And if, the state is backed up, which they were last fall, we had 30 teachers that we almost had to send notes to parents saying these teachers are not highly qualified, simply because all the paperwork was with the state. It was all filed on time, but the folks that do this work at the state said, well, it almost didn't meet the deadline. Well, it did meet the deadline. If you get your money to the IRS by April 15th, you're on time. But they have a different attitude apparently down there. And so they were saying, we'll get to you when we get to you. And so we would have had 30 teachers that we would have either had to move out of Title I schools because they wouldn't have been highly qualified because they were lacking a piece of paper. Not they were lacking something they needed, they were just lacking a piece of paper that was filled out by somebody down in Montgomery.
Any further questions? Thank you. No comments? David, you got it?
At 8:35, I'm good.
Okay. I'm going to just say two announcements. Johnson High School has their baccalaureate service Sunday at 3 o'clock at First Baptist Church on Blue Springs. And another announcement for the public, we will have a special call meeting of this board Wednesday at 8 o'clock in this room. We'll tell you the reason later, but you can come.
Take care of end-of-year stuff.
End-of-year stuff, transfers, personnel stuff. Okay, hearing nothing else, we're going to, Superintendent, you got another comment? You good? We're going to adjourn for the fish, Mary?
Well, if I may.
Well, I asked you earlier.
Well, I know you did, but I wanted to wait until
Had to
after
think
the
about
vote.
Okay.
And it wasn't that I didn't think that it would be unanimous, but I did want to wait. I came tonight for several reasons. One is nostalgia, I guess, because I was in the central office when that court order actually began, and that was a long time ago. And I've kept up with what has occurred, and I will say, not ditto to what JR said, but Dr. Wardensky, you came to this city and to this school system at the right time. You're the right person, and you came at the right time. And I applaud you for that. I applaud the board for selecting you, and I applaud the board for following your lead that you've taken. Hasn't always been the most popular thing with some people, but we don't get things done all the time by running popularity contests. So I thank the board for what you've done for this community, having spent so many decades of my life in it, starting back in the 40s when I was a first grade student, and watching it develop as it has. This was a historic night. Jenny, you said that to begin with. You had great leadership in your legal counsel, and y'all all know that. I take credit for bringing JR into this picture in the early 80s, and I've never regretted it. So congratulations to you tonight. It's something that it will go down in history as a really historic moment in time. Thank you.
We're going to take about a 5-10 minute break do some couple of interviews, and then we'll come back with citizen comments. The special call meeting for Huntsville City Board of Education is now come to order. Today's date is May the 22nd, 2013. Time is at 8 a.m. First of all, I would like to extend apology and special prayers for our colleague, Dr. Jenny Robinson. Her mother had a stroke last night, and she's in the process on the way to Texas. So she did want everyone to know that she would not be at graduation as well. But please pray for her family. Now we'll go with our business. With first item is flexibility waiver for teacher certification. Recommendation. Oh, let me give a recommendation. The superintendent recommends approval of the flexibility waiver for teacher certification.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So we had this discussion the other night, and so this is great. It's a problem with the state, and I appreciate you asking for a waiver for us to be able to get teachers in here certified.
Any further discussion, board members? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Then it is approved. The next item. The superintendent recommends approval of the flexibility waiver for administrator certification.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Again.
We have a quick brief about that. I don't think we discussed that one this month.
John discussed this as part of the other one, whenever our last meeting was that last week? This one, in the state of Alabama, if you don't have your master's or higher degree from a state institution, you have to have 3 years of experience outside the state. And here we'd look for flexibility to be able to judge at the local level whether we could bring somebody in, might have a master's from Mississippi, Tennessee, and fewer than 3 years experience. Typically, this is an issue with assistant principals.
But did we add from an accredited university outside the state?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Then it is approved. The next item, the superintendent recommends approval of the human resources report.
So moved.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Then it is approved. You abstain. Okay, record that Topper abstains. It still passes with 3. Superintendent summary.
With this action, the board has approved 6 resignations and one retirement. 11 certified personnel were approved for employment. 6 certified personnel were approved for reemployment. 2 classified personnel were approved for employment. One teacher was assigned to a school. This was a teacher who was previously hired with a school to be determined. 89 certified personnel were approved for transfer and reassignment. 3 classified personnel were approved for transfer, reassignment. 124 certified and classified personnel were approved for non-renewal. Of these individuals, many of these are financial transactions in which a person was on a funding source that was a 1-year funding source, a grant, or perhaps Title I funds. Of these, 43 of these individuals 47 were recommended for non-renewal as teachers who would have otherwise been renewed, but were not recommended based on performance review.
That's it. Thank you. Next item, the superintendent recommends approval of the 3-year principal employment contract of Ann Job, location, Academy for Academics and Arts School.
Second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Then it is approved. The next item, last item, the superintendent recommends approval of the 3-year principal employment contract. I'm going to call her Lynette Alexander. What's her real name? Personia Lynette Alexander. Location, Westline Middle School.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Then it is approved. Also, we will be having a special call board meeting to finish personnel tomorrow, preceding Butler High School graduation. This following Butler High School graduation. We are adjourned.